wash a single dish. She didn't prep a single service, sweat through a Friday night rush, or spend a single sleepless night trying to figure out how to pay a vegetable supplier with $34 left in the bank account. But the moment my restaurant was valued at $4.2 million and featured in the state culinary guide, suddenly, she remembered she was a founding partner. Honey, I've survived 58 years on this earth, and 22 of those were spent in commercial kitchens. I've survived grease fires, failed partnerships, and lean years where my daughter and I lived in a studio apartment that smelled permanently of old frying oil. Did you really think a woman in a designer trench coat and a lawyer with a leather briefcase were going to push me out of my own kitchen? She picked the wrong old chef to try that with. Welcome back to Dad's True Revenge. Grab your snacks, get comfortable, and remember, the people in these stories had every chance to behave themselves. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. You're going to love it here. I want you to know that I was having a perfectly fine Tuesday morning. Not an incredible morning, just a solid one. I'm 58 years old in Little Rock, Arkansas, which means a good morning is when your lower back doesn't ache from standing on concrete floors for 12 hours straight and the linen delivery arrives before the breakfast rush. That's it. That's the whole bar. I had cleared it. The linen truck had come and gone, the tablecloths were crisp, and I was sitting at the small corner table near the window, drinking a cup of chicory coffee. I was watching my daughter, Chloe, organize the pastry display case. She was 23 now, meticulous and calm, arranging her signature lemon thyme tarts with a level of care that made me immensely proud. She had engineered the entire dessert menu herself, balancing flavors with a natural instinct that you can't teach. And I was thinking that life, all things considered, was finally where it needed to be. Then I heard a car door slam out front, a sound I didn't expect on a quiet Tuesday morning between shifts. A white Mercedes, the kind of clean that tells you the owner pays someone else to detail it twice a week. The kind of car that belonged to someone who lived in the wealthy suburbs of West Little Rock and wanted everyone to know it. I knew before the handle turned. 12 years, 12 long years of silence, and I still knew the exact cadence of her heels on the pavement. She stepped through the door wearing a trench coat, a lightweight designer trench coat. In Arkansas, in August, the humidity outside was 90%, the air felt like warm soup, and she showed up dressed like she was trying to catch a connecting flight in London. She had that look on her face, the one she used to wear when she'd maxed out a credit card and was preparing the speech on why it was actually an investment in our future. Practiced regret, store-bought humility. Meredith, my ex-wife. I didn't get up from my chair. I held my coffee cup with both hands, let the steam hit my face, and waited. David, she said. Oh, David, Lord give me strength. Meredith, I said. She walked across the dining room floor like she was inspecting a property she already owned. In a way, a lifetime ago, she had a right to be here. We started our first tiny cafe together in a leased space that had grease-stained walls and a broken ice machine. She had signed the original incorporation papers back in 2014, mostly so we could get a small business loan using her father's old truck as collateral. But signing a piece of paper and doing the work are two entirely different universes. Chloe stopped what she was doing. She didn't drop the pastry tongs, but her hands froze. She looked at her mother, then she looked at me. There was no recognition in Chloe's eyes, only the defensive posture of a girl who had watched her father work himself into a hospital bed to keep the lights on while the woman standing in front of us was living a completely separate life 3 states away. Meredith looked like she wanted to reach out, maybe offer a tearful hug for the cameras that weren't there. I looked at her like I was checking an inventory delivery for shortfalls. Can we sit down and talk? She asked, her voice carrying that soft, breathy quality she used when she wanted something. You're already standing, and you're already talking, I said, taking a slow sip of my chicory coffee. Might as well keep going. She sat down across from me at the small wooden table. It was the same table where Chloe used to do her middle school math homework while the dinner rush roared around her. Meredith looked around the room, taking in the exposed brick, the polished copper pots hanging above the open kitchen, and the small framed review from the Regional Culinary Society that called our restaurant the crown jewel of the downtown revitalization project. Then she started talking. For 15 minutes, she talked without saying a single concrete thing. She talked about her personal journey. She talked about accountability and how her therapist had helped her realize that she had run away from her responsibilities because she was spiritually unready for the burdens of motherhood and entrepreneurship. She actually used the phrase, spiritually unready, like it was a valid medical excuse for leaving an 11-year-old child and a drowning business in the middle of the night. She said she felt ready now, ready to reclaim her space, ready to have a relationship with her daughter, and ready to take her rightful place as a founding partner in the business we had started together. Her daughter, her business. I want to pause here so you understand something very clearly. Meredith left in the autumn of 2014. The restaurant was 6 months old, bleeding cash, and Chloe had just been diagnosed with a severe chronic asthma condition that required expensive daily maintenance. Meredith took her clothes, $4,000 from the operating account, and the Honda Civic. She left a note on the prep table that said she couldn't breathe in this town anymore, that the stress was killing her creativity. She dressing up cowardice in the language of self-discovery and drove toward Texas. She sent a single birthday card to Chloe in 2016. It arrived 3 weeks late, contained a $10 bill, and was signed, warmly, Meredith. Chloe, who was 13 at the time, looked at the card, handed the $10 to me to help pay for her inhaler refill, and went back to peeling potatoes. She had already decided that her mother wasn't a line item worth keeping on the ledger. So when Meredith sat in my dining room, adjusting her expensive trench coat and talking about her legacy, I kept my hands flat on the table. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at her. "How is she?" Meredith asked, nodding toward Chloe, who had quietly retreated into the back kitchen to get the dinner prep started. "She's 23. She's a master pastry chef, and she's healthy," I said. "I saw the feature article in the Southern Gourmet magazine," Meredith said. There it was, the real reason, the North Star of her sudden spiritual awakening. I set my coffee cup down with a deliberate click. "Did you, David? I am so incredibly proud of what we built. I always knew this concept had legs. I want to be a part of it again. I want to help expand it. We're still legally connected, after all." "Meredith," I said calmly, "what's the name of the dish supplier we used in 2015? She blinked, her perfect eyebrows drawing together. "What, David? That was 10 years ago. How am I supposed to?" "The one who threatened to sue us because we were 90 days late on a $300 order of salad plates," I continued. "The one I had to call at 2 in the morning, begging for an extension while Chloe was coughing in the next room." "What was his name?" Silence. Pure, unadulterated silence. "It was Miller Supply," I said. "Thomas Miller. He passed away in 2021. But his son still handles our accounts, and he gives us a 15% discount because he remembers that I paid every single cent back, $5 at a time. On time." I picked my cup back up. "You were saying something about what we built." Meredith left 20 minutes later, her heels clicking a little faster against the floorboards, claiming she just wanted to give me some time to process things. She tried to touch my arm on the way out. I pulled back just enough to make her hand find empty air. 3 days later, the certified mail arrived. Marcus Vance has been my corporate attorney, my financial advisor, and my occasional fishing partner since 1995. He is a man who looks like he was built out of old oak and legal statutes. He has a face that doesn't hold expressions well, which makes him terrifying in a deposition and very comfortingly solid when you're facing trouble. But when I walked into his office and saw the look on his face as he reviewed the documents, my stomach dropped. He looked up from the papers, took off his reading glasses, and leaned back. "David," Marcus said, "we have a bit of a structural problem here." I sat down across from him. "Explain it to me like I'm a line cook on his first day, Marcus. Because if I start guessing what that look means, I'm going to lose my temper." He laid it out cleanly. When Meredith and I divorced in 2016, we did it through a low-cost online service. We had no money, no assets, and a mountain of debt. The restaurant was technically worthless on paper at that exact moment. The divorce decree stated that we divided all existing personal property, but it never explicitly addressed the original 2014 business filing or the partnership shares of the LLC. Because we never officially dissolved her portion of the initial corporate entity, and because her name was still listed on the state registry as a founding member, she had a legal foothold. Now that the restaurant was a multi-million-dollar corporation with a brand new appraisal and a second location in development, her attorney, a high-priced corporate shark from Little Rock named Evelyn Pierce, was arguing that Meredith was entitled to 50% of the current equity or a forced buyout based on the new valuation. I drove back to the restaurant in complete silence. I sat in my truck in the back alley for 15 minutes before going inside, listening to the hum of the kitchen exhaust fan. Chloe was at the prep table, slicing fresh figs for the evening service. She looked up the second I walked through the door. She reads my face the way a seasoned chef reads a classic recipe, instantly, accurately, and without needing to look at the measurements. "The paperwork is real, isn't it?" she asked quietly. "I'm not a man who handles emotional conversations with ease. My late father used to say I communicated like an old diesel generator, loud when working, but hard to get a smooth signal out of when things got complicated. But with Chloe, I never lied. She has a legal claim to the original filing," I said. "Her lawyer is looking for a multi-million-dollar settlement or they're going to try to force a sale of the business to liquidate her shares." Chloe didn't cry. She didn't drop her knife. She just looked down at the cutting board, her fingers tracing the edge of the steel. Then she looked up, her expression entirely cold. "Let her try to take it," Chloe said. "Pop, just let them file the motion. Don't offer them a single dollar to settle." "Chloe, they have a corporate law firm behind them," I countered. "I'm trying to protect what we have. And I'm telling you to let her bring it to a judge," she said, her voice steady and perfectly leveled. "She thinks she knows what this place is worth. Let's show her the actual cost. I want to be completely honest with you. My initial reaction wasn't confidence. It was a deep, protective panic. When you spend a decade keeping a business alive with nothing but sweat and stubbornness, the idea of a courtroom deciding its fate feels like letting a stranger handle your finest knives. It makes you want to pack up the pantry and dig in for a siege. But I had trusted Chloe's instincts since she was 14 and told me to completely change our menu format from fine dining to elevated comfort food. She had noticed that our customers were skipping the expensive entrees but ordering double portions of the sides and desserts, and she was entirely right. That single change saved us from bankruptcy during the winter of 2017. She understood people, and more importantly, she understood how to look at a problem without letting the heat of the kitchen cloud her judgment. I decided to trust her, but I also told Marcus Vance to dig into the archives. If we were going to war, I wanted every single receipt, every invoice, and every tax return from the last 12 years organized and ready to deploy. What Meredith and her expensive lawyer didn't understand was that they were dealing with a family that survived on precision. You cannot run a successful kitchen if you don't track your waste, your costs, and your yields down to the fraction of an ounce. Meredith didn't want a piece of a restaurant. She didn't want to manage a staff of 22 people or figure out how to maintain a walk-in freezer. She wanted cash. Her current life was built on a foundation of sand. A few phone calls and a public records search by Marcus revealed that her husband's high-end real estate firm in Dallas had just filed for corporate restructuring after a massive development project fell through. They had 2 outstanding tax liens on the primary residence, and a civil suit from a group of private investors. The white Mercedes in my parking lot wasn't a sign of success. It was a rental designed to project power during a shakedown. The timing of her return wasn't a sudden burst of maternal love or entrepreneurial pride. It was simply math. The preliminary hearing was set for a Thursday morning at the Pulaski County Courthouse, Judge Beatrice Vance presiding, no relation to Marcus, though they shared the same old-school Arkansas intolerance for nonsense. I wore my best charcoal suit, the one I bought for my daughter's high school graduation. Marcus carried 2 large banker's boxes packed with financial ledgers. Evelyn Pierce, Meredith's attorney, walked into the courtroom with the kind of posture that suggests she charges by the minute and enjoys the view from the top floor. She laid out a sleek leather folder with color-coded tabs. Meredith sat beside her, dressed in a navy blue dress that screamed quiet luxury, her hands folded primly on the table. Chloe sat next to me. She brought a single accordion file folder. Evelyn Pierce opened the proceedings with a masterclass in legal theater. She painted a picture of a dedicated co-founder who had been forced out of her business due to personal medical hardships and marital distress, leaving her valuable intellectual property and corporate shares in the hands of her partner. She argued that the current success of the restaurant was built directly on the foundation laid in 2014, and that her client was entitled to her fair share of the $4.2 million valuation. Judge Vance listened, her chin resting on her hand, her eyes completely unreadable. When Pierce finished her opening presentation, the judge looked over her glasses at our table. "Mr. Vance, what do we have from your side?" Marcus stood up slowly. "Your Honor, we don't dispute that the petitioner signed the original incorporation papers in 2014. What we do dispute is the assertion that she holds any equitable stake in the entity that exists today." Marcus opened the first banker's box. He didn't pull out a fancy corporate brochure. He pulled out 12 years of federal corporate tax returns. From 2014 through 2025, my client filed separate corporate tax schedules, Marcus explained. Every single year, the business recorded losses or minor gains. And every single year, my client issued K-1 forms detailing partnership liabilities. Because the petitioner had abandoned her domicile and left no forwarding address, these forms were sent to her last known residence and her legal representatives. He flipped open a ledger. Furthermore, for 11 consecutive years, the petitioner filed her personal taxes jointly with her new spouse in Texas. On those returns, which we obtained via discovery, she claimed exactly 0 business income, 0 business losses, and 0 material participation in any Arkansas corporate entity. In fact, she legally declared under penalty of perjury to the Internal Revenue Service that she had no active business assets outside the state of Texas. Evelyn Pierce shifted in her seat, her pen stopping mid-stroke. "But that's just the federal framework," Marcus continued, nodding toward Chloe. "My client's daughter, who is the head pastry chef and operational manager of the business, has brought some more localized records." Chloe stood up, opening her accordion file. She didn't look at her mother. She spoke directly to the judge, her voice clear and completely devoid of emotion. "Your Honor, this is the operational logbook from the kitchen spanning the years 2014 to the present," Chloe said, handing a thick, grease-stained leather binder to the bailiff. "In our industry, we maintain daily shift logs for health code compliance, payroll verification, and inventory control. Every single day the restaurant has been open, the manager on duty must sign off on the hours worked and the operational decisions made." Chloe looked at the petitioner then. "There are exactly 3,842 daily entries in these logs. My father's signature appears on 3,840 of them. My signature appears on 2,100 of them. The petitioner's signature appears exactly 4 times, all in May of 2014. After June 12, 2014, her name completely disappears from our supply chains, our cleaning schedules, and our payroll. Chloe pulled out another set of documents. And these are the personal loan agreements. When the restaurant was failing in 2016, my father took out a personal line of credit against his own life insurance policy to keep the staff paid. In 2018, he took a secondary loan to replace the ventilation hood. The petitioner's name is entirely absent from these liabilities. She didn't sign for the debt, she didn't pay the interest, and she didn't face the collection risk. Judge Vance took the kitchen logbook, turning the worn pages with a slow, deliberate rhythm. The courtroom was so quiet you could hear the hum of the old fluorescent lights overhead. Ms. Pierce, Judge Vance said, her voice dropping into a register that made Meredith's attorney straighten her jacket. Your client is asking this court to grant her 50% of a business valuation that was created entirely through the financial risks, personal liabilities, and daily labor of the respondents, while she was actively declaring to the federal government that she had no part in it. Your Honor, Pierce attempted, her tone losing its sharp edge. The original partnership agreement was never formally dissolved. A partnership is an active enterprise, Ms. Pierce, not a lottery ticket you hide in a drawer for 12 years until it hits the jackpot, Judge Vance interrupted. The petitioner abandoned her operational duties, she abandoned her financial liabilities, and she abandoned the jurisdiction of this state's business laws. You cannot claim the harvest when you refuse to even look at the field for a decade. The judge closed the logbook with a heavy thud. The motion for a forced buyout or equity division is denied, Judge Vance ruled. Furthermore, I am directing Mr. Vance to formalize a corporate restructuring order removing the petitioner from the state business registry based on laches and operational abandonment. The current corporate entity belongs entirely to the respondents. She looked at Meredith, whose face had gone completely pale, the carefully cultivated look of quiet luxury shattering into raw panic. And since we have a clear record of the petitioner's tax filings in Texas contradicting her sudden claims of Arkansas business ownership, Judge Vance added smoothly, I will be forwarding these proceedings to the state revenue departments of both Arkansas and Texas for a routine reconciliation of past asset disclosures. We're adjourned. Meredith didn't wait for her lawyer to pack up. She stood up, her expensive trench coat trailing behind her, and practically ran from the courtroom before the doors had even finished swinging shut. Real revenge isn't a loud confrontation in the middle of a busy dinner service. It isn't throwing plates or making a scene for the local gossip columns. Real revenge is the quiet sound of a thick leather logbook landing on a judge's desk, proving that 12 years of steady, honest work cannot be undone by a signature on an old piece of paper. We drove back to the restaurant. We didn't celebrate with champagne or take the night off. We opened the doors for the evening shift right on time at 5 o'clock. I went into the kitchen, put on my apron, and fired up the line. Chloe was at her station, her hands moving with that same practiced precision as she finished a fresh batch of chocolate tarts. The dining room filled up quickly, the hum of happy customers and clinking silverware filling the space we had built together, one shift at a time. My ex-wife's appeal was dropped before it even reached a coordinator. The financial review from the Texas Revenue Authority, according to a brief note Marcus received, resulted in a substantial audit of her husband's corporate filings that cost them far more than the price of a white Mercedes rental. We haven't heard from her since. I'm still in my kitchen. My lower back still aches on rainy days, and the chicory coffee is still hot. We're doing just fine. If you like this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being part of this sphere.